page 5 of your fall semester exam review. Okay, so this page is going to cover 21 through 24 on the right side. All right, let's get going. Here we go. What is an equation of a line in slope-intercept form that is perpendicular to the given graph and passes through the point 4, -1? Okay, so a couple things here we need to figure out. Okay, slope-intercept form. We should know by now that is y equals mx plus b. Let's go ahead and remind ourselves. Y equals mx plus b. Okay, and then what we need to figure out? Okay, we need a perpendicular. Okay, perpendicular, and I know that you probably can't fit this in between the lines, but just for space purposes, I'm going to go ahead and fit this in between these lines. Perpendicular means the opposite, as I reminded you on the last video, the opposite reciprocal slope. Opposite reciprocal. Okay. So write that somewhere, either a separate sheet of paper or somewhere where you can find some room on here. Opposite reciprocal slope. So let's go ahead and identify what is the slope of this line here. Okay, so pick for yourself two good points. Okay, so I'm going to pick the y-intercept at 0, 2 right there. There's a point, and then it also crosses directly through the x-axis at 1, 0. Okay, and then go ahead and draw your triangle. And we're going to do rise over run. All right, so we know this is going to be a negative slope because this line goes from left to right downward. Okay, so the rise is going to be down 1, 2, which is -2, and then over 1, which is +1 there. So the slope of this line here, I'm just going to go ahead and write it on the graph. The m here is equal to -2. We don't, since we're going to be writing an equation, we don't need to put over 1. You only want to put over 1 when you're going to graph it. Okay, so the slope there is -2. All right, and let me go ahead and draw a line, separate our work here. So our new line, one that is perpendicular, okay, new line, we are going to have the m is going to be the opposite reciprocal of -2. Okay, so the opposite, we know it's going to be positive. Okay, and the reciprocal is going to be, that turns into a fraction, 1/2. So the opposite reciprocal is positive 1/2. Okay, and then we know we have a point of 4, -1, as it says in the problem, in the question up top. Okay, all right, so we are going to be using point slope form. Okay, point slope form first to write our equation, then we'll transform it into slope intercept form. Okay, so as a reminder, let me do that over to the right, just so we have lots of room to work here. So point slope form, y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. And I kind of crammed that in there. That's okay. All right, so going up to this coordinate, actually we just use this one here. Let's go ahead and label the 4 is going to be our x1, and the -1 is going to be our y1. Okay. So writing an equation from this, we have our x1, y1, and we have our slope, or our m. Okay, so the y minus, put the minus sign first, then we're going to put -1, okay, because it's minus or subtracting the y coordinate, which is -1. So subtracting -1 turns into a +1, so you can circle that, put +1, and that is equal to the m, or the slope, which is 1/2, times x, put the minus sign first, then we are going to use 4. So that one is not a negative, so we are just subtracting a +4, which just turns into a minus sign. Okay, good. So now we have an equation, but the question does ask us, or tell us to, or asks us what is an equation of slope intercept. Okay, so we got to change this equation here into slope intercept. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the parentheses by distributing. Okay, so on the right side, I still have a y plus 1. Now this is equal to, when I distribute, you have a 1/2 times x, which is just 1/2 x. Then half of -4, or 1/2 times -4, is just going to give you -2. Okay, and then the next step, or last step, is just going to be subtract 1, and I'm going to line it up with the like term, which is the -2. So your final equation in slope intercept is going to be y is equal to, we have a 1/2 x, and then -2 minus 1 will give you -3. Remember, when you are subtracting two negatives, it gets more negative. Okay, so there is our final answer there. Slope-intercept form. Make sure you guys know the difference between standard, slope-intercept, and point-slope, because you'll have to use all of them. All right, good. Now we get into inequalities. What is the inequality of the graph shown? All right, it is a little blurry, okay? But on your papers, you might be able to see a little better than on the screen. Okay, so what is the inequality of the graph shown? Same thing as in writing an equation from a regular line. We need to find the y-intercept. So let's go ahead and I'm going to use green here. Let's go ahead and find the y-intercept. The y-intercept here is going to be -10. All right, and then find one more good point. It looks like this line crosses through another good point right here. Okay, so drawing your triangle to see what our slope is going to be, we are going to rise. And notice how the numbers here are going by twos. So this is 2, 4. Okay, so that's +4. And then going to the right, if we only go one space, that is going +2, +2. Okay, so your m, or your slope, so m is equal to +4/2. And if you reduce that, 4 divided by 2 is just going to be 2. Okay, so your m is 2. And we know the y-intercept, or the b, okay, is going to be where we drew our first coordinate. That should be the easiest thing for you guys to identify. That is going to be at -10. Okay, so writing an equation, if you guys recall, all I had you do was write a y, leave the sign blank, and then give yourself some room, write the mx plus b. So 2x, and then in this case it's going to be -10. Okay, so you see here how we have our slope of 2, and then we have our y-intercept of -10. Okay, and now we need to figure out what kind of sign we're going to have. Okay, well, you see here how this line, you can see it is a dashed line. Okay, dashed line means there is not going to be a solid line underneath your inequality sign, so we do not need to worry about an or equal to. All right, the shading here, the shading is above the line, or in other words, greater than the y-intercept. So that means the solutions, or the y, needs to be greater than everything else. So that is going to be a sign where the bigger, or the mouth, is eating the y. Okay, so our final answer is going to be y is greater than 2x minus 10. Okay, so at the very least, when you get to a test, at least get your slope and your y-intercept, so then you can start eliminating some answers. And also, if it's a dashed line, you know it cannot have a solid line underneath the inequality. What I mean by that is one of these guys, either less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, that you will not see on this one because it's a dashed line. If it's a solid line, you will see one of those. Okay, moving on. Number 23, here we go. Now we have a solid line here. We need to solve a system, or write a system of inequalities. That means 2. All right. List 3 ordered pairs. Oh, never mind. I'm sorry. List 3 ordered pairs that are solutions to the system of inequalities graph below. All right. A solution to a system of inequalities is anything that falls within the darkened shaded area. So you see how the darkest section is going to be all over here. So if you take your pen or pencil, I'm going to use green because it's easy to see for on dark problems. And you just circle any coordinates. Let's circle in here, and there is going to be more than 3 right answers. There can be an infinite number of right answers. Okay, so just go ahead and circle anything. Okay, does not matter what you circle. All right, and now that I circled 3 of those, I'm going to go ahead and just label those. All right, so the first coordinate, I'm going to do this one here. I'll circle it with black. Okay, let's circle that one. That's going to be at -8. Remember, you want to go x, comma, y coordinates. Okay. So the first one will be, we'll go x, comma, -8, not x, comma, -8. Okay, there we go. The x coordinate is -8, comma, the y coordinate, which is -4. All right, we got that. And then now the next one is going to be the one that's right on the x-axis. That is going to be -9 is your x coordinate, and then you do not go up or down, so 0 is your y. And then the last coordinate is going to be the one up above. The x coordinate there is -6, and the y coordinate, you could see that is going to be in between, so that's going to be at +3. Okay, and like I said, there is an infinite number of right answers. That yours do not have to match up with mine. Just pick any coordinates that satisfy or that lie within that shaded region. I will let you know, all of these coordinates, I'm going to circle some for you. These coordinates that fall on this solid line, These are also solutions, okay? These guys will all be solutions because anything on the solid line, those will be solutions. But with that being said, all of the other ones, I'm going to put in red, meaning that no, those can't be, right? All of these guys that I'm circling, these will not be solutions because they fall on the dashed line. Coordinates that fall on the dashed line are not solutions. Solid line are solutions. Okay, moving on. This is the last problem on the page number. Is this number? Yeah, page number 5. What is the graph of the inequality y is greater than 3x minus 1? Okay, just like when you graph a regular equation, this is in y equals mx plus b. So you still need to locate what is your m, or identify your m. So m here is going to be 3. And now that we're graphing, I am going to put a 1 underneath it. Make sure your slope, or your m, is always a fraction. If it's a whole number, make it a fraction by putting a 1 under it. All right, and then your b is equal to -1, or your y-intercept. Okay, so going on to graph your b, or your y-intercept, find -1 on the y-axis, which is right below 1 down. Okay, put a dot there. And then the slope is 3/1. And once again, I am going to draw like the little staircases or little arches just so you guys can see what I'm doing here. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to put dots like I'm counting. Okay, so the slope, remember m, I'm going to put this above, m is equal to rise over run. Okay, get that in your head so that you don't forget. Rise over run. So starting from the y-intercept, we're going to go up 1, 2, 3 because it's positive, and then to the right 1 because that is positive as well. You want to go positive, positive. So let's go up 1, 2, 3, and to the right 1. And then let's go ahead and go the opposite direction, and we're going to go negative, negative. We're going to go down 1, 2, 3 to the left 1. Down 1, 2, 3 to the left 1. Okay. Before you connect these coordinates with a line, we need to decide what kind of line do we have here. Well, let's go ahead and circle this inequality sign. Remember, less than or greater than, this means dashed line. And I want you guys to write this down so you can study. Dashed line. And then if you have a less than or equal to, or a greater than or equal to, this is going to be a solid line. Okay. So since it does not have that solid line underneath, it is not going to be a solid line. It's going to be a dashed line. So connect all these dots with a dashed line. So that is one difference from a regular equation. The other difference is the shading. Okay, so here's something else that I want you to write down. If it is less than, let me write this somewhere else. Okay, so less than or equal to, this means that the shading is below the line. Okay. Or in other words, less than the y-intercept. Okay, and then if it is greater than or equal to, this means above the line. This is talking about the shading. Okay, so what I would do is maybe box these in so you can separate them, so you don't get confused what means what. Okay, all right, so this is a y is greater than. Okay, so that means we're going to shade above the line. Okay, so shading above the line is going to be everything that is bigger than the y-intercept. Well, if the y-intercept is -1, all the other coordinates on the y-axis that are bigger are going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way to infinity. So that's why I want to give my shading all above. And you don't necessarily have to color it in real dark. Don't spend time doing that. Just make sure that you have the shading is, it's above the line. Okay. All right, that completes page 5.